Welcome. We are talking today about the most critical leadership attribute for building culture at work. My name is Kelly Heron, and you are on the channel for Transitional Leadership, where we help individuals and businesses implement leadership and career skill development to foster an even greater impact. And if you have been around for a while, you know that one of the most pivotal aspects of that is really understanding yourself and how you lead. And no, that's not through your leadership style, because that will ebb and flow with the situation that you need to be in, but it is dependent on your leadership strengths and your dominant leadership attribute. And so there are hundreds of people who have gone through and taken my quiz to determine what their dominant leadership attribute is. I will have the link below if you are interested and have not taken that quiz yet. But the results that you can get from it will tell you what your leadership attribute is that you lean on in times of stress, in tough times, when you are just trying to do the best that you can, but you go back to the basics, what's most instinctual to you. So that is a focus on action, achievement, objectivity, connection, reflection, or humility. And while those are all useful and good and have their place, and we all need some aspects of each and every single one of those, there is one leadership attribute that will help you build a culture at work like none of the other ones can. And that is humility. Now, humility is not denying that you have an impact. It is not denying that you have done a ton of work. And we will get into that in just a minute here. But part of the reason why humility is so important to building culture is because it levels up on the other attributes. In order to be humble, you have to have done something. You have to have taken action. You have to have something to be objective about. And then you need to connect with other people and reflect on that. So when you are putting all of these different leadership attributes together, humility is really the one that binds them. Now, if you go take the quiz, do not try and scam it and try to get humility as your dominant leadership attribute. There is no shame in having another attribute be your dominant style. I will be the first to admit that humility isn't my fallback. It is not my dominant leadership attribute. Okay. But it is so critical to build and foster an attribute of humility so that you can build the culture. Because let's think about it. Let's break that down a little bit, okay? Why is humility so critical to creating culture? Well, if you are a leader who focuses on seeing people get work done, taking quick action, the more masculine approach to leadership, right? If quick action, being objective, getting things done, focus on achievement, some of that needs to have happened, and you have to be able to see it and appreciate it to build this humility, right? But that's not enough, is it? I can see you all but scratching your head right now thinking, okay, but those people who are so focused on achievement and action and objectivity, they typically aren't the humble ones, are they? That's not how they seem. That's not how they're perceived, right? Because we also need that connection, that reflection of, we could have done this differently. Would we get a better result if we would have done it this way? We need those more feminine attributes as well, right? And if you can think of a boss, a coach, a teacher, a mentor, someone who embodied all of that, who saw what you were capable of, who pushed you to achieve more than you were pushing yourself to achieve, but then reflected on it and really, told you the stories of how they maybe came up short sometime, or you connected over, all of their failed attempts and what they've done differently over the years. It's those people who come at the situation with humility that end up being our greatest, most memorable leaders along the way. All right, so I think you can see then the risks of not using humility to try and build culture if you have a more masculine and driven approach, right? If you're always focused on the next best thing, if you're always focused on moving really fast and focusing on achievement and being really black and white in every situation, people can feel lost. People can feel like they don't have a place, or it's not okay to make mistakes. And then, even worse yet, they try to cover them up, right? But what about on the other side? What is the risk to the culture if you are only focused on the more feminine side of it, the reflection, the connection, right? What happens then? Well, that's when you run the risk of, sounding like grandma, where you compliment her pie and she says, "Oh, no, no, I didn't add enough shortening to the crust." Or, "Oh, I wish the apples turned out a little bit softer." That's not humility. That is what so many of us think of. But is that the culture you would want to see on your team? Where everyone's saying, "Oh, no, no," every time they do something great? They're telling you all the things that they did wrong? That doesn't create a culture that you want either, does it? That creates a culture of not taking credit. That creates a culture of not achieving what you could because you're always looking for the ways to nitpick it for yourself and then eventually for others too. Nobody starts to feel like they're winning because you're so focused on pulling back and sort of self-sabotaging all of those situations, and that isn't what we want either. So humility doesn't mean that you don't give out credit. What it actually means, I think you're going to love this. If you have a pen, write this down. The definition of humility is freedom from arrogance. Doesn't that sound refreshing? Freedom from arrogance. But it sort of poses the question, right? What does arrogance actually mean? I'm going to read this one to you. Arrogance is an attitude of superiority manifested in presumptuous assumptions. Arrogance is an attitude of superiority manifested in presumptuous assumptions. That is the antithesis of humility. Notice that didn't say anything about achievements either. That didn't say that they took great action. That didn't say that they were actually objective. It's actually not objective at all. It's completely subjective. It's an attitude that manifests itself in assumptions. So all of it is just air when there's arrogance, right? There's no substance to it at all. Yeah, there's superiority. There's feeling like I am the most important person in the room, but it is based on nothing. It is not based on credibility in the least bit. And I think that that's why people, when they want to be humble and when they want to show humility, they start to say, "Oh, I'm not that great," because they don't want people to think that they believe themselves to be any better than anyone else. I'm totally, you know, making mistakes all the time. I'm certainly not above making those mistakes. There's nothing wrong with that in a feeling, but you need to have that credibility as well. And so when you start to kind of pull back from the praise, rather than looking humble, you look discredited. And that's not what we're going for, right? That's not a culture that we want to build. So when you are looking at how this will impact your culture at work, it's the freedom from arrogance that you want the people to feel. And it's how that freedom manifests itself that people see as the culture. Now, what does that mean? So it could look like leaders or senior leaders giving credit to those people who actually were closer than to the work. Because we've all heard the stories or even experienced the situation when leaders above us have taken credit for the work that we did, right? And so we want to build the culture where the leaders and the senior leaders are giving the credit to those who did the work or are closer to the work. The positive culture could also look like communication that is transparent and authentic because there's no presumptions to uphold. We're not trying to make anyone look better or worse than they are. We're just merely humbly reporting on facts. So it can be incredibly transparent and authentic. It can look like mistakes that are treated as learning opportunities because everybody makes them and there's no reason to hide them. We can applaud those failed attempts because we learned something from them that we can quickly take action on for the next time. There's so many other examples, and I would truly love to hear from you. So if you are able to put those in the comments, let me know what that positive culture does look like for you or could look like for you if there was humility brought into it. Humility is the one leadership attribute that requires some degree of the other attributes to be realized. So, like I was saying before, you have to have some level of an action taker and you have to have accomplishments to be humble about. You also have to have the ability to reflect and connect with others to display humility. And that means if you're a humble leader with a quiet confidence that respects the contributions of others and of yourself, then you already have strength in the other attributes as well that you can be proud of. Humbly, of course. All right. I hope that that was helpful for you. Again, if you are interested in taking the quiz, click the link below. Also, there is a full blog post on this that even goes deeper. And if you'd like to read that, click there as well. Please share and like this material if you want to spread it to other people who you believe would benefit from it. And you can always just share it with them directly. I hope that you have a wonderful day.